Awesome. Welcome to Más Leaders. I'm so excited to be here with Tomás Robles. Tomás, es un placer tenerte, and we are so happy to get to know you a little bit more. So, Tomás, tell us about yourself, beyond the titles, beyond the success. Who is Tomás Robles?
Sure. So first and foremost, I want to say, Ruth, thank you so much for the opportunity to share my story. Hopefully, I'll be able to inspire or enlighten someone to pursue a path that I did. Because at my root, I'm just a guy from the Inland Empire. I am a descendant of farm workers, fourth generation, right? So at the moment, I currently work in education, and that's where I want to make my difference. So at my root, that's me, just a guy who grew up from humble beginnings, but with the dream to help and inspire the community that gave so much to me.
Who had the biggest influence on you growing up?
When I was thinking about these questions, that was the one that really kind of like stuck out to me because there's so many people I could name right now that really made an impact on me. But I'll start by saying my late father. My dad was a strong, funny, clever, and flawed man. He was not perfect, but while he was alive, he was my hero. He was someone that strived to have me do the best I could. He reminded me that the sacrifices that our family and ancestors had made, I should be shooting for the stars. And here I am, recently graduated with a doctorate degree. I just got married, and we're expecting our first child. So
Congratulations. Yes,
thank
you
you.
are.
Thank you. My life is so full of love, and it's only because my father told me how to choose and pursue a life of love. So I would say, yeah, my dad. And if I may, his name is
Yes.
Ted or Theodore P. Robles, and we're naming my son after my after.
That's a beautiful legacy. What a wonderful thing to say about your father. As you think of your childhood, I think a lot of our backgrounds and our culture in our community are similar, very family oriented, very close to each other.
Mhm.
When you think about your childhood, your values, maybe a lesson you learned when you were a kid that still guides you today.
I would say I learned that lesson from my mom. My dad, although very personable, my mom was the one that was the social butterfly. My dad was kind of the guy that sat on the couch or was in the corner at the parties. My mom was the one flying. And, as I mentioned, when she's at Stater Brothers seeing everybody, she will make time to see everybody. If they're in a different line, she'll wait for them or what have you. So, my mom, as a young man, I would see her say, me and your padrinos, my godparents, and all of that group of friends, they've been best friends since they were 7, 8, 9 years old. And now they're in their 60s, 70s, and they still meet for Christmas, for coffee. That really inspired me to like really invest in those friendships that are lifelong. And to this day, I'm proud to say that I have friends that I've had since elementary school, some of which were in my wedding. I can't imagine a life where I'm not investing in these genuine friendships. And Ruth, I'm sure you can agree there are folks out there that hurt you, maybe on purpose, maybe not on purpose. But I think with the inspiration that my parents have shared with me, and they've asked me to, they've rather shown me to pursue a life of faith. I like to think God has put these wonderful people, yourself included, in my life. And I want to invest deeply and genuinely in those relationships. And I would consider myself in that one of the richest men on earth because my heart is so full. When our child is born, I know it's going to be welcomed. That boy will be welcomed with so much love and open arms, and just I know people are praying for us. I know people are. If I was in the hospital today, I don't know how many people would go, what do you need, what can I help you with, can I help your mom with something? I just feel so blessed to have that.
What a blessing. And Tomas, I think we're all so proud of you as a community too.
Thank you.
When one of us wins, everyone wins. And so I am very happy to actually get to know you and have a conversation with you.
Thank you,
As you
Ruth.
think of when you were a kid, you talked a little bit about community, you talked a little bit about, your little baby boy that's coming. What part of Tomas as a kid is still Tomas now?
This question can go a lot of different ways, but I'll throw you a curveball. I would say the Thomas that is still alive today is the silly Thomas. As I shared earlier, I worked at a community center. specifically in Parks and Recreation. I don't know if you're familiar with like like a YMCA after
Yep.
school program. My
Mhm.
mom worked at the community center in our city. I was a tiny tot youth program, teen center program person. Then I became a lifeguard. I worked for program leadership. I was a recreation leader, recreation specialist, pool manager. I just did Parks and Recreation for 15 years of my career. And even though it wasn't the most lucrative, job at the time while I was pursuing my education, it was so fulfilling because once again, these are people that are my neighbors, my cousins, people that my mom knows, people that, I went to school with and I didn't really get to have a relationship with because we never had classes together. But now all of a sudden I'm teaching their kids how to swim in swim lessons, right? It's been so great. But I bring the funny because in that experience at the community center, our supervisors would always say our core values are like integrity, responsiveness, responsibility. But the one core value that stuck out to me was humor.
Mm.
And my boss would always tell me in this community center setting, you can have children, teens, adults, seniors, folks without a home, folks that have just lost someone that they loved. Maybe their pet ran away, right? You might be the first smile that they see in the morning or that
Mhm.
day. So make sure everybody that walks through those doors at the community center, their family. So I would always kind of crack a joke or I'd be like, hey, what's going on? So I think that as I grow older, I'm now in I'm 33 now these days. I will say that the room that I kind of pop into, I bring that same energy, be like, hey, what's going on? How you been? So I would say that that silliness spills over not only into my professional life, but very much into my personal life. I don't know if you saw the photos from my wedding,
Yeah.
Ruth, but the big thing, right? Like we did the dance classes, we did the Frank Sinatra impersonator. It was amazing. But the thing that stuck out the most, my wife and I were like, we need donkeys at our wedding. We had two burros that showed up and they dressed up like a groom and a bride. I'm smiling that whole wedding, right? Like, oh, I'm so in love, blah, blah, blah. When those donkeys were there, I was lit up. My wife as well, right? Like that was obviously the best part of the whole wedding. It. I just think that if we don't have a touch of silly or the
Mm.
sparkly bits that my boss used to tell me, we can't get through these hard days,
Yeah.
or let alone uplift our community in those hard days. Because as you know, our community right now, even in just Southern California, it is hard. Our neighbors are experiencing a great deal of trauma and stress. And as someone like yourself or me who have the capacity to uplift or help somebody, I think we're trying, but it's definitely hard. There's too many gaps, right? So I would hope that I'm going to point to the camera. If you're listening to this podcast today, please consider calling a friend.
Yeah.
Hey man, let's get some lunch or what have you, because you never know. Like I said, with what my boss shared, you never know what someone is going through. There's
Yeah.
a million things that's going on in the Latino community right now.
Right, right.
Let's lead with love. Let's lead with kindness, and let's start 2026 on the right foot.
Yes, yes, that's so beautiful, Tomas. And you talked a little bit about culture and family and
Mm.
impact, all bundled up into one beautiful conversation. As you think of you as a kid, you now earning your doctorate, how did that change you? What did that do to Tomas, the little boy, and Tomas now?
The Tomas, the little boy that grew up playing video games and watching
Yeah.
Dragon Ball Z, all of a sudden has the credentials to be a executive in a higher education space. I'll start it like this. I was very fortunate to grow up in a community in Colton, San Bernardino, where I had the means and the network and the capacity to try things out. I spent 5 years at community college, specifically San Bernardino Valley College, where I currently work, my alma mater. Shout out, go Wolverines. Um, I One of my first classes was intro to acting, and then the next class I took intro to yoga, intro to guitar, and I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing? I'm not taking classes that are going to help me support my family. At the time, my I don't know if you know this about me, Ruth, but my mother, after working at the city of Colton for I think 15 years, she was the executive assistant to the executive director. She was laid off abruptly, so that money stream for the family was cut off immediately. And at that same time, my father became fatally ill with congestive heart failure. So as I'm starting college and taking yoga, both my parents are unable to work. because my mom's taking care of my father.
Oh,
So my sister and I had to work two jobs each and also be expected to pursue full-time education. And I'm like, how? What are we doing here, right? So if I may, I'll open up a little bit more intimately. I was at the library at Valley College and I'm crying and I'm stressed out because I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, right? I really don't have that support at home just because my parents are so focused on like how are we going to keep food on the table, right? So I am in a moment of weakness at the library and a man puts his hand on my shoulder and he says, "Mijo, hi, I work at the school and you seem a little distressed. Can I talk to you? Can I help you out?" And I'm like, "Sure, just here's my story." And I'm just kind of barfing it up at him. And he goes, "Oh, wow, okay, well, if I may say, I'm a person of color from this community as well. And I just want you to know that it sounds to me like you need experience. Like you need the experience to level up your career, to get that job that can support your family. Tell you what, right down the hall right here, they're doing student government elections. I bet if you run for a position, you'll probably get one." And I was like, "Sure, I'll take your advice. Thank you." I ran. I got the president role of student government
wow.
abruptly. Yeah, I ran, and the other guy never
Awesome.
showed up. So I kind of ran unopposed. So all of a sudden, we have a budget of like 500,000 to $1 million.
Wow.
And I'm like, and we're in charge of all the clubs. It was my job to do advocacy for our student body. I had to be in all these different meetings. It was
Right.
a lot to take in, but it really shaped who I am now pursuing educational leadership. That man was Dr. Ricky Shabazz. He, at the time, was the vice president of student services at San Bernardino Valley College. I remember when I graduated, he was the guy that handed me my diploma and shook my hand.
Oh,
And I pursued his career path. Or rather, education path, I should say. I transferred after 5 years from Valley College to go to my local CSU. I went to Cal State San Bernardino. Go Yotes. I'm a double alum now. After I got my bachelor's in liberal studies, I thought I would teach for a little while, but I realized higher ed leadership is where I wanted to be. I was asked by a friend, "Why not you get your master's? You might as well." So I went to UC Riverside. So now I have community college, CSU, and UC
wow.
experience. Totally different landscapes, right? So I go to UC Riverside and I pursue a master's in higher education, administration, and policy. So all of a sudden, I'm studying theory, policy, critical race theory. I'm studying how to uplift Latinos in policy, services. How do we educate not just the student, but also the family?
Wow.
How do we create a holistic
Mm.
space where everybody is getting touched on in that influence, right? So after I got my master's, COVID hit. Man, like no one's hiring. So I'll be honest, I got my phone and I made a TikTok account
Yes.
and
Yes.
I posted a video where I was like, "Don't get a college degree, it's a scam." I was like, man, I spent all this time trying to do what Dr. Ricky Shabazz did. And my now boss saw that video. He said, "Hey, I know that you're an alumni. I see that you got like 5 likes on this video. Pretty snazzy. Would you like to join our team? I'll hire you at, oh, I don't know, 25 an hour. I'll pay you 30 hours a week, and then we can go from there." Since then, I have now been at Valley College for about 4 or 5 years now. Since COVID, we are the number one followed California community college on TikTok. We are the number one community college, I think, in the nation on Facebook in terms of followers and engagements. We have gone to conferences. We're currently increasing our enrollment from, I think it was, let's say 12, 13,000 students. Now we're at 16, 17,000 students. We've increased our enrollment exponentially. And of course, it's the campus, but also it's the work that we're doing in the
Yeah.
marketing department. By engaging with Gen Z, by engaging with our non-traditional students, we've launched a whole Spanish platform to communicate to our Spanish speaking community that might not be able to see what we're doing. But in that experience, I was asked by a mentor of mine, "Hey, you should probably get your doctorate." And I'm like, "I'm 30 years old, man. Like, I don't know about, like, I'm just making silly social media videos for the college." And he's like, "You want to do it before you have a baby and before you get married." And I'm like,
Mm.
"Okay." So in 2022, I joined the Doctorate of Educational Leadership at Cal State San Bernardino, my alma mater. That's the same doctorate that Dr. Ricky Shabazz pursued. I'll be honest, I'm surprised I got in. I would argue the greenest in my community, in my cohort. Everybody else was like, "I've been teaching as a professor for 20 years, or I've been teaching K through 12 for 30. I'm an executive at this college. I'm a trustee at Mount Sac. And I'm like, I'm just a guy that makes funny videos. Like, it's crazy. And, we were in the trenches together for 3 years. I wrote a dissertation that
Wow.
was very rooted in my life and experience. I don't know if I shared with you, Ruth,
Mhm.
my dissertation. It's like my big capstone project. I studied the impact of family achievement guilt in Latino males at the community college level within the Inland Empire. Me pursuing an education as I kept moving up, I would go to my parents, when my dad was still alive, or now my mom, and I'd say, Mom, now that I have a master's, I like to think that I know you should probably be doing these things to set yourself up for retirement or what have you. And she's like, ever since you got that degree, like you talk down on me. And I'm like, I'm not that.
Wow.
No, that is not what's happening. I only wish to make your life easier.
Wow.
I wish that you would speak to, understand your son has gone through a lot of life experiences. I got on my first plane because of higher education. My mom never flew anywhere, so college literally sent me to go to conferences in Washington D.C., Florida, all over the place, and it's just because I volunteered, right? So to this day, my mom and I'll be honest, kind of butt heads sometimes, but I hope she knows it's out of love. I'm not trying to show off, hey, now I have a doctorate. No, no, no. If me getting a doctorate has meant anything, it's that now the people in my network, the people that I could reach out to
Mhm.
like this, you have the power. You like amplify what you need through me so I can connect you to those resources. I would argue, and I'll end my answer with this. I would argue, folks in education, we are in the job of opportunity. We provide opportunity for people. We open doors for people, right? Like maybe we're not the ones walking through, but Ruth, even in this call, if I can open a door for you,
Mhm.
right, I would know that I'm doing my job.
Right.
So if I'm talking about my internal struggles, as I try to hold the door open and I'm like, come on, mom, let's go through, go ahead. And she's like, it's been fun and interesting. But to answer your question, sorry for the long-winded
That's great.
explanation. Education has just changed my life in so many ways, and I didn't even take advantage of all of the scholarships and programs that I could have. Now I'm making it my life's goal to make sure that the folks that I see, that I have the opportunity to speak to, like in this podcast, that there are opportunities for you to go to school for free. You can, if you've never been on a plane, you could be like me, join a committee on a college campus or student government, and they'll fly you to conferences for free. And all of a sudden, you have a network of mentors that only want to invest in you,
Mhm.
bring you up,
Mhm.
and we just amplify the entire community. It's all in the family.
That's so great, Thomas. And I want to double click on that a little
Sure.
bit. I think legacy is something that
Mm,
has been very strong in my mind and heart for a few months now, because when we think of legacy, I think
mm,
oftentimes we think of when we die. And legacy is what we do every day. Legacy is what you just said. Like, if
mhm.
I can open a door for you, I'm going to do that. If I can introduce you, I'm going to do that. I think most of the time it's not that we don't want it, it's we don't know how to. And you just said right now, you can get an education. You
Mhm,
don't have to spend millions of dollars, but the
mhm.
lack of knowledge in that space associated with the fear
Yeah.
prevents a lot of people from moving forward. I was
Mhm,
interviewing a gal. She's
mhm,
18 years old. She wants to go to college. Her father owns a business in landscaping, and her
mm.
mom owns a house cleaning business. They do well. They have
That's
two
great.
homes, but she doesn't even know how, because the information that she's been given is you have to
Yeah.
pay 80, $90,000 up front to get into an education where,
Sure.
and that's where I think our community is at, some of our community members are at. And
Sure.
that's where I think of legacy. That's where I think of support. That's where I think of, how do you make a difference, Tomas? How do I make a difference through this? Just
Sure.
knowledge share is
Yeah.
power. So if you can say, hey, like I did it,
Mhm.
just simply that, you can do it.
Yeah.
That in itself motivates someone to even start knocking on the door. So I love
Absolutely.
that you said that.
And, if I may speak to that very briefly, something that so if I may, in my job right now at San Bernardino Valley College, my main jobs are I am the president's social media guy. I am the executive mouthpiece essentially
Yeah.
for San Bernardino Valley College. Whatever the president needs to post, I'm the guy that I whip it up and I say, is this good to go? And then we post it, right? And we're amplifying what the campus wants to share. He always says, right people in the right place at the right time. That stuck with me so much when I was in UC Riverside. All the people around me are like, I'm a UC Berkeley grad, I'm a UCLA grad, and these are the best like public universities in California. I'm just a guy that literally got all of his education in San Bernardino. The whole goal was to bring it back into my home community that gave so much to me. And these people are like, oh yeah, I worked in Japan for like 5 years, and I'm like, I'm this little guy that I just happen to be here, right? And I'm feeling pretty low, I'll be honest. Early on in that experience, I was at a networking event that was held by the College of Education. And I'm sitting there, I'll be honest, I'm a wallflower. I'm sitting there with my little fruit punch, and I'm just kind of like, I was nervous. And a man comes up to me and he says, hey, Thomas Robles. And I said, yeah, hi, Dr. Rodriguez. Yes, my name is Dr. Louis Rodriguez. I'm the dean of this program. Oh, hey, Dr. Rodriguez, how are you? Thank you so much for, letting me in this program. And he goes, I was reading your application and I noticed that you're from the city of Colton. Yes, I was born in Colton. I
Oh,
would like to talk to you. Sure. Wow. Gave me an interview the next day. I went to his office, and he essentially says, I'd like to hire you as my graduate student research assistant. And I said, what does that mean? Essentially, everything that I'm doing as the dean, you're going to be like the little project manager. And I'll pay you, I think it was like 23, 25 at the time, 25, 30 hours a week. And something else that you get as a graduate student working in this space is we pay for half your tuition. What?
wow.
So half of my master's is just sliced in
Wow.
half out of nowhere. At the time, I had never had like my own insurance. I had like IHP, which was like the free insurance. That job came with insurance
Wow.
and it was part time. But they don't tell us that there's these opportunities that you can just be working in one of the offices and they will give you free tuition just to
That's
be an
amazing.
intern essentially.
That is so amazing, Tomas.
Yeah.
And as I think of opportunity, I think of our time together. I think of your son. I think when we share this information for the next generation coming behind us, they will
Mhm.
essentially share that information with the next generation and the next
Mhm.
generation, which I think is why we're here. Double click on education and how to support more students. But as we come to the end of this session, I want to ask you a question. This podcast is called Mass Leaders, and it's
Mhm.
born in from a place of we want more leaders to
Mhm.
rise. We want to lift more leaders. We want more leaders in our community.
Mhm.
What does a mass leader mean to you?
When I think of mass leaders, I kind of think of, when they pass the torch with the Olympics, I imagine the person that lights other torches, right? When I think of a leader, it's someone in the trenches, not someone that's yelling from back and like, hey, you got to do it like this. Like, no, you got to be up there with them. So I would argue mass leaders means making mass leaders. So like you were just saying, I think that we are doing the world a disservice if we're not trying to give back and inspire the next generation or even your friend or your neighbor or even your spouse, right? I think we should do rather. I think the Latino community should do everything they can to uplift everybody, not just those in the Latino community, because everybody's hurting. We all got to pay taxes. We all deal with death. We all deal with birth. Let's just make a life that's cool. That's just super understanding, positive, and uplifting. If I can even have a sliver of that and share it with the folks that I have the honor and blessing to see on the daily basis, I know that I'll die a happy man. I'll have lived a fulfilled life.
I love that, Tomas, and it's been a joy to get to know you today.
Thank you.
Like I said, I think there's going to be a take two on this
Sure.
just from an educational standpoint. There is so
Mhm.
much good information that you're sharing. And as someone that has earned their doctorate and also has gone through a lot of hard times with your parents and has gone through
Yes.
a lot of heartache, like you said, we can't avoid that. But
Yeah.
we can be there for each other through the
Yes.
process. So I want to thank you for your time and
Mhm.
congratulations on the baby.
Thank
We
you.
will see you soon. For those of you that heard the entire podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like it, or share it with someone that needs to hear the information we shared today. Thank you so much for joining, and we will see you soon.
Adios.
Bye.